Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV and welcome to Mesopotamia, Oxford. Now, we've been here quite a few times on Panwo TV. Remember my 2012 diary, etc. So this is not the first time I filmed this particular location, but I've never filmed in this particular location for the particular reason that I'm actually going here now. I'm actually heading onto the island or Ayat, whatever it's called, of Mesopotamia, which is accessed via this bridge across this mill. There's this mill house here, and this is the River Cherwell. As you see, it is actually part of University Park, so it's locked at night. A mill, there's no mill here, but there's this weir here, and this is the actual island, if you call it that. I mean, it's known as it's called an island. It's known as an island, or Ayat. It's got this long path that goes along it. You can see it on the map, or you can watch the other videos I've made in this area. And it is a beautiful location, which I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed walking here my entire life. These old trees and bushes and the grass. It's like a long, thin island that runs through the eastern side of the city of Oxford towards University Parks. There we are. Look at that, isn't it lovely? Now you may be wondering, why is there a connection here to St Helena Airport, Ben? Well, all will be revealed. All will be revealed, my fair viewers. I've been meaning actually to do a major St Helena video, a St Helena Airport video update at certain times, but there hasn't really been any cause to. There's been no major changes since the last one I made, talking about the internet, the media, etc. But if something comes up in that sense, I will. I'm now going to talk about something which is, you may think, what's this got to do with St Helena Airport? Well, it is related, and it's to do with a different island, a very different island to this one, but it's still an island, and what's been done to that island is relevant. What's been done to St Helena, indeed what we're walking on now. Because if you look very carefully, you can't see it so well here, but you will in a minute, because when we come to a weir, this is not really an island in the normal sense of the word. Now you can see it very clearly here, because we have a weir, one of the weirs along this river. This is the Cherwell here. This is what's known as the Upper Cherwell. You may notice that even though this is a river, the water is not really flowing. It's covered with this green waterweed, which is actually very pleasant. It looks very pretty when you get further up here, actually, along that side. You may notice the water level there is much higher than the water level here. This is what's known as the Lower Cherwell, and depending on weather conditions, there's this weir. This weir here is sometimes opened or shut to regulate the flow of water between the two Cherwells. So, and it goes along this entire island here for about half a mile or so. There's there are several. Where's someone coming? There are several weirs along here. Don't get the sun in my eye. There are several of these weirs along here actually, and sometimes if you come over here when it's been raining a lot, they open the weirs and the water can flow very easily. But this is not actually an island. You see, an island is a piece of land completely surrounded by water. This is actually it's been described, actually, if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's been described as an Ayat or Ait, meaning a long thin island. The reason it's called Mesopotamia is because Mesopotamia is a Greek word. It means between the rivers, and actually refers to a region of Iraq, which is it's like an island, but it's not usually considered an island because it's just basically a space of land between the rivers Tigris and Euphrates. And so what this is essentially is a very large decorative dam in the River Cherwell. Now that is not an island. It's a dam in the middle of the Cherwell. So it's wrong actually to call this an island geographically. This landscape around us was constructed in the 1860s, and there's horses over there I can hear. And basically they put this dam in the Cherwell and they cut these ducts across it and put weirs, and I don't think it serves any purpose. I don't know what the River Cherwell was actually like before this was built. I don't know what it would have looked like. Presumably it wouldn't have been like it wouldn't have been like flowing really fast downhill, because if this island suddenly disappeared, you get a massive torrent coming down the hill. So it's a bit like, do you remember the Iffley Weir I showed you? It's on a previous St Helena video. I showed you the weir at Iffley, where there's like there is a kind of island-like thing between. There's a lock, and there's two weirs, and there's some rollers for small boats. Do you remember that? I can't remember which St Helena Island video it was, but it was one of them. Because I always try to go to islands when I'm talking about St Helena. Look at that. See, I quite like that waterweed. I think that green floating waterweed means the river's not flowing. So yes, this is a different kind of thing. See the swans there? Aren't they lovely? They're juveniles. They've got grey brown feathers, which means they're quite young. Yeah. Incidentally, that thing in Argentina's back in the news. You remember the floating island in the circular pond, which is supposedly the gateway to an alien base in Argentina. Oh, it's called the Eye. Oh, O-J-O is spelled. That's back in the news again. I hadn't even thought about it. I wrote an article about it like 5 years ago. I forgot all about it. It's actually nothing. There's nothing strange about that, actually. It's simply a patch of floating waterweed in a pond. That's all it is, in some wetland. Duckies, yeah. But that's an aside anyway. The reason I'm here is because we're looking at here now. I'm not against this lovely place. As I said, I've enjoyed it my whole life walking along here. I've been in Oxford since I was 8 years old, and I've been walking along this area ever since then. And I won't tell you how long that is, but it's a long time. And I'm very fond of this place. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that was done here. However, I sometimes think as humans, we have a habit of doing these things because we can. We want to sort of show off almost to ourselves how clever we are. And sometimes I think we sometimes do these kinds of things for the sake of it. We just, and when we build these kinds of things and construct these, to be fair, it is an enormous achievement. A lot of the engineering works are great achievements. What was done, what the hell's going on over there? That's new, I've not seen that before. See the waterweed there on the river. What was done, for example, St Helena Airport was an enormous engineering challenge, and you can't take away the achievement that it was. But I think it came at a price. I don't know if any price was paid in the building of Mesopotamia 180 odd years ago. I don't know. But I think sometimes when they do these things, people do pay a price. Something is lost. What is gained is sometimes just the ability for us humans to say, oh, look how clever we are, aren't we amazing, look what we can build. And sometimes it serves a useful purpose. At other times it doesn't serve much of a purpose, and or something is destroyed in the process of creating it. In the case of St Helena, I'm not sure. Only the saints themselves can really comment on that. They're the ones who have to use the airport. They're the people who have to live on the island. All I've said is what I consider to be something a little bit... there are concerns I have with St Helena Airport. Another example is, well, it's far more unequivocal, is HS2. Now, we can say about HS2. What is HS2? Is an engineering achievement. It's a high-speed rail network right across the country, costing, well, every time you look at it, the price tag's gone up £5 billion. But either way, it's something we can say, well, look, we can do this. It's an engineering feat. We can create this, and let's do it. Let's build this high-speed rail link right across the country. But in this case, for what purpose? What purpose does it achieve? It cuts down the travel between London and Birmingham by, it's estimated, about 20 minutes. When you take into account getting on and off trains, buying tickets and things, the actual time it will save is about 20 minutes. And what price has been paid? Well, I've done an entire video on this, haven't I? I've done, I think, 2 videos about HS2. what's been paid is cultural and environmental treasure houses of England have been trampled beneath the feet of bulldozers. Ancient trees that have won awards for their beauty and their magnificence and their history have been thoughtlessly felled. And it could be, there's other examples. This is what I think it's related to St Helena Airport. And I've got another one I want to show you, and we'll do it in the studio actually, because it's a bit difficult doing it here. But we'll do it in the studio. And I'm talking about another island, one very, very different to St Helena, in a different part of the world, one just off the coast of Russia, and it's called Kotlin Island. So if you will accompany me now to the studio, we'll look into that right now. Hello everyone, welcome to the studio. I just thought I'd add this little bit in here, which is easier to do at home in my studio than it is when I'm out and about on location. So I'll just show you a little bit about what I'm talking about here when I'm referring to this island. There is an island off the coast of Russia called Kotlin Island. Here it is. It's here at the mouth of, this is called the Neva Bay here. You see where it is in relation to the rest. There's the Baltic Sea here, the Gulf of Finland. And this is St. Petersburg, the big city here, used to be the former capital of Russia there. Now, this island here, Kotlin Island, there's a lot of history in this island. It's very old, has been very important in Russian history for centuries. As you can see here, it's not really an island anymore because it has there's a road going across it. And the reason there's a road going across it is because someone's built an enormous dam all the way across the Gulf of Finland, and you can see on the scale here how long it is. And I'll show you a little bit more. I'll say a little bit more about this dam. But first of all, Kotlin Island is it's got an interesting history. It's played a major role in Russian history, and it's a World Heritage Site. And it's part of what's called St. Petersburg and related groups of monuments. And indeed, you may be familiar with the word Kotlin, because it's also the name of something electronic. It's like Java. Java is named after an island. It's a programming language in computing, and so is Kotlin. And there's been several battles fought there. At one point, Sweden occupied it, and the Russians actually took it back. I think that was sometime in the 18th century, and it played a major role in the Soviet Revolution and the Bolshevik Revolution and the establishment of the Soviet Union. Not least because of what's known as the Kronstadt Rebellion. This is where there's a naval base on the island that rebelled against the Bolsheviks, and because this was the middle of the Russian Civil War, the Bolshevik High Command decided to invade the island and destroy the rebellion. In doing so, they killed over 11,000 of the rebels. It's one of the most infamous acts in the Russian Civil War. That's a very important thing. So it's very important in the history of Russia. I mean, a lot of Russians must realize it, and you can see by its geography that it is actually on the sort of western extremity. It's where Russia is it's not a landlocked country, but it has very little. It has limited access to the sea for a country of its size. It's the world's biggest country by a long way, but much of it has a huge northern coast, but much of that is ice because it's most of the year it's completely covered by ice. There is there's ports on the northern coast such as Murmansk and Petropavlovsk and places like that, and they have limited access to the sea. I mean, I think some of them are open all year round, and there's icebreakers and things like that to keep the rest open. But the rest of that coast is completely iced over. And then in the south, there's the Black Sea, which again, there's like the coast of Ukraine mostly, rather than Russia in that area. Places like Crimea. That's why Crimea is very important to both countries. And then but then to get anywhere, you've got to go through the choke points of the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits to get into the Mediterranean, and then subsequently to the Straits of Gibraltar. And I'll be saying more about the Straits of Gibraltar in a minute. Apart from that, it's just the Far East, Vladivostok in the Far East. I'm learning a lot about Russia because, as you know, a time's coming when I might have to go and live there, as I've explained many times before. But so this island, if you look at it,
Kronstadt Island is sort of like, it's the reason there's a naval base there is because it is so, it basically guards the whole city of St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is right on the coast, just a few miles actually from the border with Finland and Estonia. So it's actually quite close to foreign countries, just a few miles away. One of the reasons that I think they moved the capital of Russia from St. Petersburg to Moscow for that reason, to make it more defensive. So important, very important point. And so what happened was they built a dam. It's called the St. Petersburg Dam. And it's also known as the Flood Prevention Complex. And it is a 16-mile long set of dams with sluice gates and locks in them, which extend, I say, right across Neva Bay. And halfway along is Kotlin Island. And it is an amazing achievement. It's an amazing achievement. It has a long history. It's actually was planned. It was first planned as long ago as the 1950s. Proper work began on it in 1978. This took a long time, not least because of the fall of the Soviet Union at the end of the 80s. Sort of like put a kibosh on all these kinds of projects. But it was actually brought up. It was actually put on hold. It was actually suspension. Construction was suspended, and then in 2005, my mate, Vladimir Putin ordered the continuation of the building, and it was eventually finished in 2011. And it's already actually prevented St. Petersburg from being flooded at least once. But it is controversial. A lot of Russians don't approve of it. So it plays a similar role, I think, to St. Helena Airport in that sense, because, of course, it has actually done some good. In fact, let me have a look. So I am reading off Wikipedia here. There have been several floods over the years. And you may not be familiar with the Thames flood barrier, which is much smaller. It's designed to protect London, though, from across the River Thames from being flooded. Now, in 2018, they had to shut all the gates because there was actually a storm surge, which could have caused flood damage in St. Petersburg. Yeah, again, it's a huge. If you look at what was done here, it was the entire project cost 109 billion rubles. That's $3.85 billion. 11 separate dams, 16 miles long. Built into the structure are openings to allow ships to pass through, 6 gates that can be closed to hold back water, about 30 facilities for purifying water flowing into the Gulf. 50,000 cubic yards of stone and soil were used, reinforced concrete, about 100,000 tons of steel structures and other building materials. The project was designed and implemented by over 100 scientific and design institutions, construction companies, and suppliers of material and equipment. But as always, when these things happen, this is what you always have to think about. What's the price? Because this has caused problems with water quality in the River Neva. In terms of normally seen, there's actually a current which takes foul water from the river estuary out to sea. And it's so effective. It's a completely natural process. It's so effective that has allowed the river's waters to serve as a source of drinking water with almost no treatment at all. You can literally just put a glass of water in there and drink it, and you'll be fine. Because there's no sources of pollution along the way. Since this dam was finished, there has been a lot of untreated wastewater in the area behind the dam, which has caused problems, it means that now the water coming off the River Neva needs to be treated. It needs to be purified, which just adds to the cost and things like that. And as it says here, almost as an afterthought, World Heritage Site impacts. The dam passes through the historic northern forts of Kronstadt, which is a World Heritage Site. So it just, as you can see on the map, I'll show you another example in a minute. Well, I'll try to anyway. It's a bit tricky, but it literally, this fascinating part of Russian history is now just, what purpose does it serve? It's just it's a stepping stone now. It's a giant stepping stone for modern industrialization. and it's just been walked all over here. Just have a look at this a minute. I'm just going to go to this view here. There were like old buildings here, and there was lots of I've been doing a lot of street viewing here. There's a lot of quite unpleasant Soviet era council tenements and things like that. But there are some like classic buildings too, and things like that. You see, it's like these are older buildings. You see, not the finest architecture in the world, I admit, but there's a lot. If you go to images. Oh, that's not the one I was looking for. I'll show you because I was looking. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. Hang on. The easiest thing is to go to images, and you can see here there are like you can see better exactly what it's like there. You see, there's Kotlin Island, St Petersburg. There's a church. There's some fortresses. There was a community on there, 46,000 people, who had an island, like the people of St Helena. They had an island which made them unique. It created a unique culture. Not as isolated as St Helena, but still a part of. It's still a part of. And it's something independent, something in human terms, something you don't get anywhere else. And I've been looking for. I'm trying to find another example because I'm sure there was another one. I don't know where it is now. But one of these, if you can see from this map here, I think I'm still on this view. Yeah, if you see from this map here, there are several large bridges, some of them several miles long, across these little straits here leading into the Baltic Sea. There's the I can't remember if they're the Kattegat, and one of these is the Kattegat, another is the Skagerrak. These are channels connecting the North Sea to the Baltic Sea. And some of them, they're like these bridges here. One of them crosses over. Is it this one? Yeah, maybe this one. See this one here. Do you see this one here? Just crosses over this island called Seo. I don't know how you pronounce that. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. My Danish or Swedish viewers. This is just Denmark, I think. Yeah, this is actually just part of Denmark. But you can see there's this little island here called Seo, with green fields on it and things like that. And if you just look at it, it's got some street views here. It's like it's a farming community on this island, and now it's just a. I wonder what do the people who live there think about just having this bridge? It doesn't even stop on the island; it just goes one end and across the other. So it's just like the Kotlin Island bridge. It just goes. You drive. You can see that there's a road across the top of it. You're literally just driving along this road. You might go over this entire island and not even notice it there. It's there. It's just like one more like piling on the bridge, and I find that disturbing. I find that very disturbing. And it seems we're doing this sort of thing more and more. I mean, and there were some projects like that have been planned and never completed, which are just appalling in that respect. I mean, there's one called. It's got this very romantic name. It's called Atlantropa. Now, this was mentioned if you ever watch Man in a High Castle, the film, the Amazon series. It's mentioned there, but this is like a really insane. I mean, I suppose there's some people who just admire its daring, and I understand. I kind of can realize that. I think I can understand why some people just admire this. The people who just believe we should just go out there and control things. Atlantropa was an idea that it was proposed by someone called Hermann Sorgel. Was it Sergel? And he came up with this idea in the 1920s, and he spent the rest of his life trying to get it to work, trying to get it approved, right up until he died, 1952. And the idea was this is where it gets crazy. The idea he was going to put a dam, like the one I've just shown you, across the Gulf of Finland, 16 miles long. He planned to put this across the Strait of Gibraltar. And the Bosphorus Straits, that is in the Black Sea. And I suppose you wouldn't necessarily need to do that because the Black Sea drains into the Mediterranean. and then basically drain some of the Mediterranean Sea. You built a dam across the Strait of Gibraltar. Now this would have been enormous. I'll have a look at. Let me just show you the. Let me just show you the ideas here. Let's go. Let's go to picture image. I've got some images of it here. The Strait of Gibraltar Dam. Here we go. Strait of Gibraltar Dam. I think this is the idea they had here. Look, this is how long would it be? Building a dam in the Strait of Gibraltar from Atlantropa. How long would it be? How long would a dam in the Strait of Gibraltar have? How big would it have to be? What would this project have to be like? Because there's a part of me that just thinks it's so daring and it's the kind of thing that you people do. It'd be built across here, I suppose. So that's measure distance. Again, like it's 11 miles. So it's shorter than the one. Well, you have Kronstadt and Kotlin in the middle, but we don't have this water is deeper probably. So it'd be an enormous. It will be an enormous task to do. Here's an image of it here. Building a dam across the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantropa, there it would be. Can you imagine that? Having this dam, it would be a giant hydroelectric dam, and it would generate a huge amount of power. But to do that, what Sorgel planned to do was it would involve lowering the sea level of the Mediterranean by about 600 feet, or plus 600 plus feet. And this he believed this would open up new lands for settlement. And indeed, if you look at where's the map? I've got some more pictures of it here. This is an interesting picture here. Here we go. This is an interesting picture because this is what it would have looked at like. It would have looked like this. This looks like a simple picture of the Mediterranean Sea. I think there's a better quality version of that. Here we go. This looks like a picture of the Mediterranean. It is the Mediterranean, but if you look closer, you can see, for example, Sardinia and Corsica are joined, and Sicily is actually connected to Italy. The Messina Straits is on land. Much of the Aegean, you see, these islands are now just peninsulas, things like that. Mallorca and is that Menorca? Ibiza, Menorca or Ibiza? I think it's Menorca. Mallorca and Menorca are joined. Of course, that's because the sea level has been dropped. So it does create a huge amount more land around here. If someone did that. Oops, what's happening now? But of course, you'd always have to worry about things like, for example, what if the dam broke? If there was a problem with the dam, all that land would flood. And indeed, we've seen this with things like the dam busters, and the Netherlands Delta plan. Sometimes the dikes have failed and huge areas have been flooded. It would be a terrible disaster. Sometimes it's a really terrible disaster. And of course, another example, of course, is more recently New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina. But there's even I read I can't remember if it was a science fiction book or like a magazine where people have suggested draining the entire Mediterranean Sea, which will probably be, if you consider how deep it is, it probably wouldn't do much good, because what would happen in terms of environment is what was left at the bottom of the sea would just be kind of an extension of the Sahara Desert northwards, so it probably wouldn't be a very good place to live anyway. But to me, it's an extraordinary thing. And he took it very seriously. I'm just checking my notes here. Oh, it's I suppose what we're looking at, what we become in this world, and this is the reason why I've made this series of films, is we've become a species where our enchantment with our abilities has, I think, overreached our wisdom. and our natural. I suppose we need a bit of natural conservatism and an ability to hold on to certain things, even if we believe they're not necessary. We've got to ask ourselves whenever we come up with ideas like this, and rather than saying, "Oh, isn't it incredible?" and we see this with like the Channel Tunnel. Just think of all the soil we moved. Think of all these millions of cubic yards of earth, and the brave, ingenious people who designed it and built it and things like that. What an achievement that was! But then, no, when people are thinking like that, they're not thinking about what is the result of this. Does it benefit us? Does it benefit us in any way? Does it make our life better? Is there a less invasive way to protect St. Petersburg from floods? Is St. Helena better off with an airport now than it was before? Would the natural flow of the River Cherwell through the university parks be nicer than Mesopotamia? It's just we tend to rush headlong into these projects and think of nothing except what we can achieve, how clever we are, our industriousness, our spirit of enterprise, and things like this. And we jump in, and we just go full steam ahead with gay abandon, usually without any brakes on our enthusiasm. But then when all this is done and we look around ourselves, what do we see? We just things like unique cultures, unique locations are gone. They're ruined. I told you, I mean, in a previous video on this, I think I mentioned this in a previous video in this series. I've certainly written an article about it. I used to love when I used to go and visit my family in the Netherlands. We used to cross over. There was a ferry boat that used to cross over the river to the other side. It's like a pontoon ferry, and I used to love traveling on this ferry with my parents, just taking our bikes or just walking across the river to the other side. It's a short journey. It used to take like 3 minutes. But that ferry boat was like a big part of my kind of like experience. It was part of my fun of being where I was with my family in the Netherlands. I was very happy, incidentally, by the way, to find out that ferry is still in service. But it's an island. It's actually at Valentia Island in Ireland. So it was actually moved when they shut down the ferry across the river. You see, someone built a big bridge just up the river. It's like a big dual carriageway on concrete pilings across a bridge. And then the ferry was no longer needed, so the ferry was shut down. I remember as a child being very upset by that. I remember thinking to myself, even if it's not needed, even if a bridge is cheaper and more efficient and things like that, even if that's the case, because the ferry is something of wonder and beauty to me, it's worth holding on to just for that reason alone, for keeping it. I mean, when I see these pictures, when I see images of like big 6-lane highways on concrete towers over the top of islands, and on the ground beneath them is just there's thatched cottages and churches, old traditional churches. I mean, I can't remember where it is. I remember seeing this, and it may not have been in Sweden and Denmark. It's maybe somewhere else. But I've seen they have built a bridge across an island. It wasn't Kronstadt. It was somewhere else. But I look at that and I just think to myself, again, you have an island with a traditional community on it, which has probably been there for centuries and been a unique and wonderful location. To me, that is a true example of human beauty, something like that. And destroying it or changing it in any way is a very, very serious matter. And it has to be done if it has to be done, and I accept sometimes it may be necessary. There has to be a good reason for it. But this 6-lane highway has been built across the island just like it's not there, and it never was there. This reinforced concrete and steel, which was just a few years old, built by mega corporations to take people in cars they don't need to jobs they hate, maybe cutting down the journey time by quarter of an hour, perhaps. You know, they used to go round past a smaller bridge, or they should take a ferry boat. But now they can actually get to this job they hate quarter of an hour sooner and work for even longer in this soul-destroying cubicle. Is it any wonder we're messed up? Is it any wonder we're so depressed when all we want, we love beauty and we love wonder in our lives? But then we look around and all we see is, we look at these creations of ours, and what do we see? We just see ourselves reflected back at us. It's soul-destroying in a way. I think we need to take a pause, and we need to think again. And we need to, sometimes we just have to say stop. Whatever it is you're planning to do to this island, to this community, to this village, to this forest, it may make you feel good. It may be a very clever thing to build this railway or this road or this airport. It may be very cool. It may make a lot of people very money. It may give people a lot of money. It might give some people a sense of achievement. It may even have benefits for that community on a material level. What price do you pay? What happens when it's done and everyone realizes that and you can't go back? What's changed has changed forever. And something terrible has happened because something of true wonder and beauty has been lost when it could have been preserved. But no one considered it worthwhile preserving.
Okay, I've come off Mesopotamia now. That over there is Mesopotamia. This bridge actually doesn't go onto Mesopotamia. It goes across it and up towards Marston. It's a cycle track. Rather appropriately, considering what other, what islands are used for other things. But rather appropriately, we hear the sound of environmental destruction. I hear trees being felled. There's a chainsaw going. Trees are being felled. These rollers here are for small boats, primarily the punts, for getting them over the river here. And I don't know why this tree's been fenced off. Maybe because this poor old thing's for the chop as well. Now, when I was a little kid, you could actually walk across here. Hang on, you could cross over here. It used to be when I was a little kid, you could actually walk onto this weir. I'll show you. Plus, it is the Upper Chua. This water's really deep, by the way. A friend of mine, their son, drowned in this once. It's pretty horrible. You see the water's just flowing down over here at the moment. But here is the weir. Now, this one's always open. There's no sluice or anything, so that one's always flowing. There used to be there used to be a plank you could walk across, and those wooden bars went right across. It's quite good fun just to walk across. I used to swim in this bit here. There's a lovely spot. This place here used to be called Parsons Pleasure. It's now a park. But I do remember when it was Parsons Pleasure. Parsons Pleasure was a nude bathing club for men. And there was another one further up called Dame's Pleasure that was a nude bathing club for women, but that actually shut down much earlier. I never knew that one, unfortunately. But this year, men used to come in, men from the university used to come here and bathe naked. Parsons Pleasure. Yeah, I know it sounds a bit homoerotic, and no doubt with good reason. But it was a bit of a local tradition, I remember. Look at that lovely tree there. So you've got to ask myself. So the question is, I know a lot of you are going to say, Ben, this St Helena stuff is just nonsense. You're just a Luddite. You're just a primitivist. And oh, got a spider web all over me. As you know what, in this day and age, of course, as I've said before in my debates with David Smith and other people, everything is polarised in this world. You're either 100% this or you're 100% the opposite. You know, you either believe, I can't even think of an example right now, but you know the kind of things I'm talking about. You know, either you believe that this particular psychic experiment was actually not real, or you're a wide-eyed believer who meditates in Glastonbury, that kind of thing. But I don't want people to think I am a Luddite. I'm not. I'm someone who believes in the use of, who is a fan of technology and innovation, and the use of human intelligence to influence the world, to change the world if necessary, for the better. What I ask is, first, I ask just two questions. Is whatever technological innovation we're talking about really necessary? Does it actually make us better? Does it make the world better? Does it give us a better environment? Does it improve our lives? And the second question is, so there's three questions, yeah. The second question is, are you just doing it for the sake of your ego, whoever's designing it, or just the collective ego of human species in general? And the third question is, what is the price we pay? What do we destroy when we introduce this new thing? And is that price really worth it? What counts for St Helena, counts for Kotlin Island, counts for Mesopotamia, counts for hundreds of other examples across the world. Those three questions are the ones I want to leave you with. Thank you for watching Apanwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.